Hello everybody, here we are, almost live with your Oklahoma Weekly Matchup Show as the Sooners get ready for their home opener this Saturday night, 6 o'clock, as they take on the Bengals. No, not those Bengals. Idaho State, of course, those Bengals. And that game will be on pay-per-view, which means if you don't have $35 or $40 to shell of your hard-earned money, ask a friend or family member if they're showing the game at their house, give them a few dollars to help supplement the cost. If you don't feel like doing that, or they're not showing the game, go to a sports pub or bar and watch it. If you don't feel like going to a sports pub or bar, then listen to the game on the radio, because last time I checked, it didn't cost a single cent to do that. Now, before we get into the X's and O's of Idaho State, and believe me, there are very few X's and O's to talk about this game, because it's going to be a scrimmage. It's going to be ugly to watch. Let's talk a little bit about Sam Bradford. On Monday, we had breaking news about his latest shoulder injury, grade 2 or 3 sprain in the AC joint of that shoulder, according to head coach Bob Stoops. When we went on the air, we had all this information, but what we learned after the broadcast was a little bit better news. The news from Oklahoma indicated that surgery should not be required on the shoulder. Terrific news there. And even better news, 2 to 4 weeks. That looks like how long Bradford is going to be out. That's better news than what I had thought. So that means that the Miami game, which is October the 3rd on the road, initially I thought it would be impossible for Bradford to play in that game due to the severity of the shoulder. Now, it could be anywhere from as bad as doubtful to as good as questionable, and he might play in that game. And needless to say, that would be a major pickup for the Crimson and Cream, especially after what we saw Miami do last night at Florida State by pulling off that upset and also showing more offense than I thought they had. Their quarterback threw for nearly 400 yards, had a really nice game in that victory in Tallahassee. So Miami, they're a better team than what we thought. You get Bradford back, what a big pick-me-up that would be for OU. Now, speaking of injuries, Jermaine Gresham, the all-everything tight end for Oklahoma, who did not play in last Saturday's loss to BYU because of the knee injury, we could find out as early as Tuesday if Gresham is going to need surgery. Obviously, if surgery is required, it's bye-bye season for Gresham, and it's on to the NFL. And of course, you have to wonder how high he'll go in the NFL draft, because you have to wonder if teams are going to be scared to pick him real high because of the surgically repaired knee, assuming that surgery is needed. But again, we should know something pretty soon as far as if Gresham will need surgery on that knee. Now, let's talk a little bit about Idaho State. On these shows that I have done my very best to be fair, objective, as well as impartial when it comes to talking about other squads, even if they're not very good, even if they're not ranked in the top 20, even if I know they're not going to win a lot of games, and even if I know they're not going to go to a bowl game. That has been the trend on my show until now, because let me tell you something, Idaho State, you stink. You should not be on the same field with Oklahoma. This game should have never have been scheduled. And don't feel bad because it's not completely your fault. I understand why Idaho State did it. Hey, it's a big paycheck Idaho State will get for traveling to Norman and for getting their tails kicked for 3.5 hours. They'll hop in the showers after the game, and then they'll fly back to Pocatello, Pocahontas, whatever city in Idaho State is based in. Okay? Idaho State, you stink. You won 1 game last year. You won 3 games a year before that. Last week in the season opener at Arizona State, Idaho State had this. That's the total amount of yardage they had in the first half at unranked Arizona State. 0. Zippo. I cannot make a negative yardage number for the entire game for Arizona State that Idaho State had, because Idaho State had negative rushing yardage for the entire game, -5 yards rushing. Total yardage for Idaho State, they had under 50, and Idaho State had 4 first downs. That's embarrassing. So, Idaho State, what do I think? Well, I think even a 7-year-old can come up with a prediction for Idaho State against Oklahoma. Blowout. Blowout, blowout. But again, I understand why Idaho State is doing this, the same reason why most other Division I AA schools do this when they play Division IA foes on their turf. You do it for money. You do it for exposure. You get your big paycheck. You get kicked for 3.5 hours, and then you take that paycheck, and you know what? We can beef up our athletic facilities. You know what? We can maybe get better equipment, add to the stadium, maybe make some scoreboard enhancements. We can do whatever. We don't make a lot of money. We're Division I AA, getting a big check from a 1A school just to lose to them. In the big picture, maybe it's not that bad. And hey, on ESPN, on the websites, they're going to have our name displayed next to Oklahoma. So hey, that's advertising. Whether it's good advertising or bad, hey, it's advertising. Our name will get out there. Again, that's why you see games like this scheduled. And again, I'm not just picking on Oklahoma because a lot of major college football programs do it. They do it to fill a game on their schedule and to add a home game to that schedule. And they're also doing a favor to the other team by adding to their budget. Still doesn't make it right, and it's still not attractive football whatsoever. So, considering that Idaho State's a really bad team, and considering that this game should have never been scheduled, I do still have 4 keys to the game, but we'll go over them briefly. Number 1, Mr. Jones. We're not talking about Mr. Jones, not the Cat and Crow song from the 90s. We're talking about Landry Jones. Hopefully the Oklahoma coaches will let him go out of the pocket. Hopefully they'll let him do more than what they did last Saturday in the loss to BYU. Let the guy play. Let's see what he did. Judging from what we saw in the BYU game, he didn't do too bad of a job, but let's see him do a little bit more in that game. Now, number 2, yellow is bad on the eyes. Yeah, penalties. And I know BYU had a lot of them, but Oklahoma's penalties I thought were more devastating because they were reoccurring ones on the same people and most of the time on the same person in Corey Brandon. Hey, Corey, the officials are going to be watching you. Play with discipline. Use your head. Okay? Use your head. That's all you got to do. So play with more discipline. Little yellow will mean a lot more success for Oklahoma. Number 3, half and half. I'm not talking about Derry. I'm talking about the backups. Get them as much playing time as possible. And hey, if Oklahoma takes care of business early, the backups can play even more than a half. If the starters are playing more than a half, then that's not a good sign. Doesn't mean that Oklahoma's not winning. They probably will be. But still, that means Bob Stoops isn't liking what he's seeing. So hopefully we'll see the backups, the third stringers, play at least a half. And then finally, number 4, no butterfingers. Not talking about the candy bar. I'm talking about holding on to the ball. Oklahoma did not do a good job of this last week, not only with the fumbles, but also with the drop passes. Try to correct that. And I think this game against Idaho State has to be the first step toward doing that. Overall, my final prediction for this game, it's going to be pain for Idaho State. It's going to be an ugly ball game, and it's one of those games, again, that I don't think Oklahoma's going to have an easier game on their schedule in the next 5 years. So probably the biggest mismatch, no question, the biggest mismatch involving a Big 12 school against a non-Big 12 school. I'm saying 63-3. Maybe Idaho State gets a field goal. They did kick a 52-yarder last week, and what was probably the biggest highlight of that game against Arizona State. 63-3. It'll be ugly. It'll be an Oklahoma win, but in no way will this prove that Oklahoma's back because you can't get really better playing a team like Idaho State. That will do it. We will talk about this game on the post-game show, which will be on Sunday. So long, everybody.